last year I was given this camera, which is a Kodak 1915 autographic camera, and I knew it was a camera and I was really excited about it. And I was looking at it thinking, how the heck do I open the thing? You know, this is vintage. It's not an iPhone. It's this beautiful object. And so I spent some time in detective mode going around it. And there's this button that's under the leather, okay? And that releases the door at the front. So here we go, pop. And then there's the lens in the front. Isn't that beautiful? It's great. Old technology. And you pull the slide the bellows forward, and there's the camera. Okay, so this is a device for focusing curiosity, and that's what I'm talking about tonight. The other thing that really got me going as well, I felt like a child. You know, I was excited. I didn't know how to open it, and then I found the way in, and it sort of reminded me of when you go to the theatre, just before the curtain goes up, there's this great sense of anticipation from the audience. And the performers, you know, they're nervous and excited, and there's this real potential in the space. So there's a lot of energy there. So I'm really interested in that. And I also discovered that when you take the back off the camera, there's this great space inside the back, which is, you know, like a miniature theatre. Can you see that? It's small. Okay. It's like a little puppet booth. There's the forced perspective. There's the lens at the back. It's a cinema, you know. And as I said before, it's a space for focusing your curiosity. It's like the old photographers, when they went under the hood, you know, we don't do that anymore really. But basically, same within the cinema and in the theatre. You kind of shut out the periphery, so you really focus that your whole being in that one place. Okay, so I've got some excerpts of films that we've made recently, and I'd like to share those with you. And this first one ties in with what you've just seen with the camera. So here we go. Okay, so just a lead in, an intro. Paul Klee, the artist Paul Klee, said, "One eye sees, the other feels." I love that. You know, I immediately think about Picasso's heads, you know, where you've got one eye around the side and the other, like the eye could be the ear, so there's this sort of ambiguity. For me, dance is as much visual as it is physical, and so capturing the human body, human movement on film kind of like puts it in stasis in a way. It like holds it in time, like a specimen. And you can the kinetic passages are given the heart of a machine, almost like you're putting an iron lung on dance. It's strange, but somehow in that reduction and that flattening off of an essentially 3D, really physical experience, you're pressing it back, and you're basically you're reducing that experience, and I find that really, you know, I'm curious about that. I'm really interested in the beauty that's and how you can control that and shape it and shift it. The other thing that links back to the camera, the early photographers Muybridge and Murray, they were pioneering photography which captured human movement like fractions of seconds. So you saw. They really studied the body through space, and also for me, the film almost captured a sense of spirit, because you kind of got like an echo behind the figure. So it was like a wake or an energy wake. So let's have a look at another clip which kind of demonstrates that. This is from the same film. Okay, so the storytelling is through the body. There's no speech, and really interested in what surrounds the talking body, the gestures, and basically the films are asking the audience to be. They're not just straight entertainment. They're kind of, you have to work to them. You've got to meet us in the middle. So they're kind of designed in a sense to, with my company, the collaborators, great team of collaborators, we really work at length to kind of suggest and not to explain. And so the films, a colleague said to me, "I really like your films, Dan, but I don't always understand them." And I said, "That's great." And then he said, I think it was a compliment. Then he said, they're like imagination catalysts. You know, there's all this space left for interpretation. So you guys have to join the dots. So you're only getting excerpts here, but when you come and sit through a whole piece, and likewise for the stage when we do live work, the work is, you know, it's deliberately open so that you work to it, you build your stories into it as well. I mean, you know, they're carefully constructed, but to do that. Okay, so I'd like to show you another little excerpt from a piece we did a few years back. This was originally a live work. Okay, yeah, that was Soma Songs, or part of it. So for me, choreography in moving images, it's sculpting with light. You know, like when you capture human movement on film, then it goes onto celluloid, there it is. And you're basically trapping the light, and you're putting it in that space, and you're sculpting the light as a film editor afterwards. So you get to revisit that, dissect it, jump cut it, you know, play with it, and revisit the dance, if you like. Okay, so that's the dance is the putty, it's the medium for the storytelling, and then the film medium can take it another step further. And the dance is imagine for a moment like your whole body's like a kind of radar system. So think of the body as a lens. You know, bring it back to the camera. So when we create dance with the company, I work with the dancers in that way. So we're really exploring space, time and space, and we're letting the body speak first. So it's kind of like tuning into the innate intelligence of the body. It's like putting the mind, following your intuition more. I think dancers do that naturally, and it's really delightful to watch and work with. I mentioned before, it was a reference to sort of silent cinema with the first piece you saw, the old sort of black and white, grainy, flickery. And this has been a point of great interest as well, and a real focus of curiosity for me. The films of Keaton and Chaplin, and just really allowing the body to speak, and the gestures to speak. Occasionally we bring captions in. So here's another piece, excerpt of a piece which is in that feel. It's called Game. So, you know, is that man playing with an aspect of himself? You know, is he playing his own, you know, like those little figures, are they like an extension of his being, perhaps? The original premise for that game was a film where this cripple comes in and he has to mend himself via this game, which is a game which involves geometry, and he plays with geometry and it gets inside his DNA, and he rewires his kind of circuit board, if you like, and he comes out all kind of fixed up at the end, and it's quirky, and you know. So just some other things I'd like to share with you. I talked about the body as lens. How I'd like to suggest the whole body is the vehicle our spirit experiences physicality through, this amazing biological instrument that we experience 3D living in, the 3D plane, the physical plane. Kinetic, the human movement captured on film is like a kinetic map which follows the spirit, okay? And that somehow the printed film, it carries a choreography of the human spirit. I'm also really interested in the way, I mentioned before, the way we leave traces in the space of our energy. Like tonight, there's a good example here in this great new venue. We've all brought our energy to this place. And so it's kind of, we'll leave like an energy signature in the space, in a sense. If you've been to a war zone years afterwards, you can still feel the energy, the heavy kind of print of what happened there, even if maybe there's only a few gravestones or something. Equally, in the other direction, if there's been a big dance and everyone's been doing the salsa and it's been going right off and it's great and it's buzzing, and that creates its own energy and leaves a print. When I toured through Europe in the 90s a lot, we went to some amazing old theatres, really old theatres, and when they were empty, they had this incredible feeling. You could feel the audiences clapping. You could feel the print left by the audiences and the performers. And somehow it's a bit like the camera. When we perform, like an athlete as well, if you're an opera singer or a dancer or wherever you're coming from with your art form, a scientist with a microscope, if you're right focused and passionate about what you're doing, you kind of like print your energy there in that space. And I'm really interested in exposing that. Like in the theatre, these old theatres, you could slice the air with a knife. It's that feeling, And then of course, when it's full, it's buzzing as well. But somehow, I'm interested in exposing and dialoguing around that idea with the work that we're doing. So, does that make sense? It's sort of like I think you feel it, when you're in those places. Amphitheatres, wow. Go really old, go way back, have you been into an amphitheatre before? And you can feel it, okay, I've got to go. So...
Not right, you're doing 3 minutes. Can't make you leave.
So with the films, thanks Stuart, I'm trying to make I'm trying to make visible the invisible, okay, in a sense, with the films, or suggest that. Traces of energy. Let's have a look at this one. It's real short. Lovely piece for 3 women. Seismos. Okay, so another kind of slightly more scientific aspect going on in the work, like the Soma songs. When we categorize, when we fix ideas, when we explain something, we tend to put its reading in a certain place, and we can very easily make a formula for that, and it kind of locks it down. And so formulas tend to impose rather than respond. So when we do that, although we need these structures in our lives, and somehow the curious mind is kind of shut off a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It's like the real curiosity gets closed a bit because you've gone, oh, that's a thing, that's what this is, we name it, we'll put it here, and you categorize it, and you park it out the side. You kind of, the spirit of inquiry is a bit lost, it's dampened. Okay, so Einstein said, I have no particular talent, I am only passionately curious. Isn't that great, from Einstein? Yeah, so when I work with my company, although we structure the ideas very carefully before we make any project, when we're making the project, I'm really careful as well to allow flexibility within that and change, because things come up as you go, and things that you didn't expect to arrive do and surface. And being in a perpetual state of curiosity during a making process means that you're constantly looking, and when those magic things come through, sometimes it's the unplanned stuff that is the real gold, you know, in the projects, and you go, oh, wow, you know, and so harnessing that straight away when it comes through, grabbing it and bringing it into the whole process, you know. If you've locked down your mindset, it's very hard to allow that to happen. So it's like trying to keep that flow going. Okay, this next film, we're nearly done, is this short, brand new, no one's seen it, so kind of mini world premiere. It's for children. Children first, adults second, and I'm going to finish talking about curiosity of children in just a moment. Okay, so just a little excerpt from Atomic, which is starring that little wee guy and a bunch of other people, fabulous people. So, you know, when we look through a camera, do we look through it or do we see through it? There's quite a difference. You know, like looking's kind of just a bit more passive. Seeing is really active. You're really looking. Okay, so and Proust, old Marcel Proust said, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. I think that's a great quote as well. Not in seeking new landscape, but in having new eyes. That's the real voyage of discovery. Okay, so I think it's really important that we don't lose our sense of curiosity, and in a world which increasingly it's hard. It increasingly encourage us not to think for ourselves. How do we keep the curious mind alive? You know, the spirit of inquiry. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Children are naturally very curious, and when we're at our most open and receptive, when we're curious, our whole being resonates with possibility and potential. You see it, you know, children are like little sponges, you know, boom, everything brand new, and they're just up for it. Whoa, yeah, you know. So yeah, this film excerpts you just saw from Atomic, the film really champions the imagination. It reminds us that we create our own destiny. Yeah, so I think just to finish, it's really important that we don't just look, but that we see.